as you know, I'm Elizabeth Disman. I'm the founder and partner of Daeco HR Consulting. And you and I met, I was actually thinking about this the other day. We met 10 years ago.
I said
Wow.
10 years. Wow.
It really has. Does that make
Wow.
sense to you? Am I right about that?
Yeah, it does make sense. It just
Yeah,
10 years. Wow. Unbelievable.
it is.
What a
Uh,
journey.
yeah, yeah. So thank you for being here. I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, and I'm so thrilled that we get to have this conversation today.
I am too. I am Glenise Harvey and former educator. I was a teacher for 30 years, as you know, and 10 or so years ago, stepped into the leadership role alongside my stepbrother at A&H Steel. So family owned reinforcing steel company here in Edmonton for 52 years now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And going strong. You and Craig both stepped into this role after your parents, and I mean, they grew the company over the last 42 years. And now the two of you have just taken it and run with it. You now have offices in Vancouver,
Yeah, Lower Mainland. Yeah.
Lower Mainland, and I think you're also in the US, are you not?
No,
Okay.
no offices in the US, but we do work across Western Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're here today because you actually sent me this book. I don't know if you remember,
I do.
but it arrived in the mail for your anniversary, for your 50 year. Yeah. Yeah. And so this is the book that you sent me.
Yeah.
And and you know, you sent me a beautiful note as well. And if you're okay with it, I want to read it because it just speaks to what kind of leader you are and why I wanted to have this conversation with you about happiness.
Okay.
Yeah. Elizabeth, gosh, where do I even begin? How do I thank someone adequately in words for being through some of the toughest moments in my life and who held me up and held me big? Celebrating this 50th year is in large part due to you, my friend. Without you and Genevieve by my side, I really don't know if we would have gotten here. Please feel my heartfelt gratitude, Glenise. That recognition, that sincere recognition is all part and parcel of what Jennifer Moss talks about in her book. And I wouldn't have read this book if it weren't for you. And I thought it would be a great jumping off point for us to have this conversation, because I know you've taken a lot of what's in this book and you've done this at A&H Steel. And you are an anomaly in the construction industry. And you had a vision 10 years ago when we started working together that you wanted to have a construction company that operated with heart. And you are that. You embody heart. And yeah. So I wanted to start off with, Jennifer Moss talks about happiness, and she says, happiness doesn't really have a definition. And I wanted to find out from you, first of all, what it was. I think you saw Jennifer in a present. You saw her give a presentation. Go ahead.
Okay, so the story was it wasn't myself who saw her. It was one of our employees, and at that time, our fifth values, our values are integrity, responsibility, authenticity, and bigger than myself. And our fifth value was have fun. And he texting me, and we had had conversations about, is it really about having fun? Is it something else? But what is it? Like we were grappling with it. And as he was listening to Jennifer, he was texting me and saying, this is it, Glenise. It's not have fun, it's happiness. It's happiness in the way that Jennifer talks about it, happiness at work. So he bought me the book. I read it and I was like all over it. It was like, yes, this is exactly what our value is here. And part of it is having fun. We have a lot of fun at work. We also have some really tough times. And part of happiness, as Jennifer defined it for us, was resiliency and being able to recognize that you're not always going to be happy, but what are some of the things that you need to do in order to get back to that place, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so great. We are talking a lot about in business nowadays, we're talking a lot about Angela Duckworth's book called Grit.
Okay.
And grit meaning that perseverance, meaning, getting back to what you're saying, where, it's actually unreasonable for us to think that we're going to be happy all the time, or that our employees are going to be happy all the time, or that we need to run businesses where our employees are happy all the time. That's not reality. That's not life. That's not how it is. And so, what would you say are some of your biggest takeaways out of Jennifer's book and what you've done around happiness? You changed your fifth value from fun to happiness. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Okay, so I think I'm going to go. So our core values they're embedded in everything at A&H. Our policies and procedures it's our way of being, our values. And my department, being people development and engagement, we hold the high watch for that. And we are always, how do we operationalize this? So in the sense, like happiness, for example, we contacted Jennifer Moss when we were defining our values. So each value has a little definition. And happiness, actually, can I show you? Everyone has one of these.
I would love it.
They're on the walls, but they're also mini ones of our values with the definitions. And we invited Jennifer to take a shot at writing a definition of happiness for A&H. So she did that, and now I use it as a jumping point for talking about happiness and how we define it. And how do we operationalize it? Well, first of all, is having it as a core value. Yeah. And then I make a point every week. I write a weekly memo, and in my message, I'm not always, but usually trying to address our values and build them out, tell stories, give examples. And happiness has the longest definition. There's so much, and it's so rich. So I've had fun taking it and peeling it apart, like talking about mindfulness, talking about gratitude, talking about resiliency, talking about you're not always going to be happy. And when you're not happy, what are you going to do about it? You're going to talk to your leader. You're going to let us know. We're going to find ways to support you. In that weekly memo, we also have acknowledgements. So every week I send off a little reminder to everyone. It's Friday, send me your acknowledgements. And they acknowledge each other. Mm-hmm. And then I put that in the memo, and it's there for everyone to see. Jennifer talks about that, the importance of acknowledging. And it's interesting, because not that long ago I was driving somewhere, and it was a billboard that said, your employees don't need more pizza lunches. They need to know they matter. Something to that effect. And I was like, pizza lunches don't make people happy. I mean, it's fun. It's great. We're having one on Halloween, like do pizza lunches, but don't think that that is, set and forget how you're going to make them happy.
Mhm. Well, it's interesting because we do exit interviews for clients. And one of the things that we find over and over again, when you ask people why they're leaving the organization, number one, the easiest thing for them to say oftentimes is money. But when you ask them, what are the top 3 reasons why you're leaving? They'll say, because I don't feel like I'm appreciated. I don't feel like I'm being acknowledged or recognized. I don't feel like I'm making a difference. And though that's what you're talking about, is how do we continually acknowledge our employees and recognize and appreciate them? And yes, pizza lunches are great, but it goes so much deeper than that.
So much deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love it if you would read us your values. Would you do
Like
that?
the definitions?
Yeah. And
Sure.
just to land on the happiness one, because you said it's the longest one, and I would love to hear them. And if you want to say anything about them as you're reading them, or how you operationalize them. And I want to say one thing. Brene Brown talks about values a lot. And I'm actually going through an exercise right now where I'm coming up with my personal values and how that fits with Daeco's values. And we've revamped our values, and they really fit. But one of the things that she says is that a lot of organizations have values, and 17% of organizations actually live those values or actually operationalize those values. And I would say that it's actually more dangerous, more heart-wrenching as an employee if my company has values they've posted and yet we don't live them. And so, it's one of the reasons why I love and respect you so much, is because I know you don't just put a plaque on the wall and say, these are our values. No, that weekly newsletter that you put together is living proof of how those values are happening day to day. Those acknowledgements are happening day to day. And I mean, those newsletters are amazing as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And we have experienced twice now leaders that we hired that in the end we released them. And one of the, I mean, lots of reasons, but in both instances, we heard either before, like leading up to it, and definitely after, how impacted people were by the fact that they didn't live the values, and it was so obvious. And to your point, and that's hard because there were lots of things that those people were doing that were contributing to the organization. It's hard to let them go. But if they're not living the values and you're asking everyone else to, wow, you can't step over that one. No. So in having values, to your point, it is detrimental and heart-wrenching when a company says these are the things they value, and yet they allow, especially when their leaders are allowed to not live those values.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's a feeling of discomfort and, even agony, I would say, when you're an employee in that kind of environment where you see these values and the leaders are not living those values. Jim Collins talks about, in Good to Great, he talks about, do you have the right person in the right seat? And do you have the right person on the right bus? And I would say that if you've got a leader who's not living your values, they're on the wrong bus.
They're on the wrong bus.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not perfect. And there are many times when I haven't lived the values, and I have to own up to it. And I have to have what we call an authentic conversation. I need to clean it up. And I also count on my team and everyone, well, my entire organization, that if I'm showing up in a way that they're questioning my values and me living the values, I want them to come to me.
Yeah.
You know, we have blind spots, right? So I might be missing that. I need someone to hold me accountable or hold me responsible for that.
Yeah. Hold the mirror up to your face.
Yeah.
You say this is the value here, but look at what happened.
And it's hard. You know, I mean, sometimes it's like, you know, one of our values is integrity. So integrity, my word is who I am. When I say it, I mean it. I'm hell bent on keeping my word. And when I don't, I deal with it in a way that you're satisfied. And, you know, when somebody comes to me and says, you promised me this, you know, that just happened to me. The owner's message for the newsletter was due on October 6th. And I still hadn't done it. And my person who's responsible is like, Glenise, are you getting this to me? And I had to address my lack of integrity, clean it up, and re-promise, you know, make another commitment and follow through. Because if you don't have, you know, we have sort of a 4-step process. It's identify your lack of integrity, identify the impact on the other person, identify the impact on yourself, and then make a new commitment. Without that last piece of making a new commitment and following through on it is just a glorified apology, and it's meaningless. Yeah.
Love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Did you want me to go through the others?
Yes.
Okay, so integrity, we actually in brackets, we call it the I say it, I mean it value. For authenticity in brackets, we call it the no BS value. So being honest with myself first and communicating where I'm not being honest with you, not pretending that I agree with you when I don't, not arguing, knowing that my interpretation is just my interpretation and not what happened. I am always willing to get your view. And at A&H, we talk a lot about interpretation. That's important. We all make up stories.
And we think those stories are the truth.
And we think they're the truth.
Yeah, they're and it's my truth, and you're wrong and I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how when you have these values and you have them clearly defined, and Brad, who's the manager of our department, he and I are currently creating our own values training program. So we are going to get input from Unstoppable Conversations, who's responsible for helping us train people in our values. But we're going to have our own little in-house training because it's so important that people get this, because then we can speak to missings from a place of values and from a place of just not making anyone bad or wrong, but hey, you said when you joined A&H in your employment agreement, you said you would start at 8 o'clock. You're not coming in consistently kind of till about 8:15. Nothing bad or wrong there. And we're curious as to what you're dealing with, that you're not showing up on time, because maybe there's something there and we need to know. And we can make adjustments if we need to, but it lacks integrity. It's not workable. And there's an impact on your team. There's an impact on you because of how your team is viewing you, because you're not showing up on time.
And isn't that great to have a conversation like that instead of how oftentimes we do it, which is they're showing up at 8:15. Well, I'm just grouchy and angry about it. I'm actually not going to say something, or maybe I'll say something kind of underhanded. Oh yeah, rolling in at 8:15 again. You know, that kind of thing. But you're saying addressing it in a respectful, kind way.
But really flat, because you're just pointing at, these are our values. This is important to all of us.
Yeah. And we're not
And
going to let that slide through.
not going to let it slide through, but I'm also not going to, and I'm just mapping it on to the, to HR, and it's the manager would go into HR and HR would pull the person in and say, okay, this is, we have to write you up without having the conversation. There could be a very good reason why that person can't get here until 8:15.
Yeah.
There might even be the possibility that they're working through their lunch or working 15 minutes extra at the end of the day to make up for that we're not aware of. It's really important. And that's, just, when I listen to Brad having conversations with people, the questions that he comes up, that he asks, because he's a coach. He's trained as a coach. And so he uses his coaching skills to get to the heart of the matter. And it's so powerful.
So wonderful. And he's your people in development
People
manager,
development
right?
and engagement manager.
And engagement. Lovely.
It was actually Daeco that came up with that, that title.
That's awesome.
And we love it. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
What's your next value?
Okay. Responsibility is I own it. Responsibility allows me to go beyond being a victim of any circumstance. I know I can blame others or blame myself, but I can also choose to do neither. Instead, I can choose to deal with life from a state of mind that I am cause in the matter. I am the source of my reactions, my interpretations, and my feelings about what's going on. No one is doing this to me. This unique definition of responsibility allows me to perform without the drama that wastes everyone's time.
Mm.
And this definition, and just to be clear, when we were building these out, we did it with Vic Mirage, our consultant from Unstoppable Conversations, who, like I say, he trains and develops us in all of this. We spent a lot of time, every word. And this one was important to us, the whole blame and shame part of it, because in the construction industry, it's endemic. When something goes wrong, the first thing people do, point fingers.
Yeah.
And they want to blame someone else for what's gone wrong and not look over here and see what was their part in it. And that was really interesting to get our people thinking that way, because the talk, especially down on the first floor in production or out in the field, is, a little bit of not so nice chatter about the outside world.
Yeah.
And sometimes even finger pointing within, which was brutal to watch. And I personally needed to see that come to a stop. It's not healthy.
And how is that? How are you seeing that's going along? Because I think you've been tackling this for how many years, would you say?
Well, since 2015 full time that I've been in the office, and so 7 years, and then previous to that, and I would have to say, Elizabeth, how it's going it's remarkable.
Mm.
It really, not that you still don't hear it, especially about when things are going sideways out on a project. It's like, well, they don't know what they're doing. But when those people are in front of our customers, there's this training, this muscle that they're building to look at, okay, how could we, and it's called cause in the matter, what was missing over here that went sideways, even if it had really, nothing to do with us. But was it maybe if I had communicated slightly differently, if I had double checked to make sure that that order was right, like, and you know, you hear this, the term, well, it's not my place to babysit, or it's not my place to hold their hands. Do you want this to get done on time and on budget? If you do, then it is your place.
Yeah.
You own it all.
I get really grouchy because I think, you know, somebody will be late to a call or late to a meeting, and I'm sitting there going, they're late. And if I can sit back and say, you know, similar to what you're saying, if I were causing the matter of this person being there on time, if I was responsible for that person being there on time, then I, you know, actually, I can use you as a perfect example today. When you sent me that text to say, did you send me the Zoom link? You know, there's a moment where I kind of went, well, yeah, I sent it to you. And then I went down the path of, well, hang on. She's a woman who's got a lot going on. It would have really worked for me to send her a note this morning to say, hey, I'm so looking forward to meeting you, to seeing you today. Here's the Zoom link again. That's me setting you up powerfully. That's me being cause in the matter of this whole thing going well. That's actually me setting you up to be happy, to be you know, powerful in coming into this conversation.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Well, and if I look over here, what was there for me to have been causing the matter of, to ensure that I was set up and ready to go at the top of the hour? We were talking last night, right? Text or emailing back and forth. Can't wait to, you know, have the conversation. And never occurred to me to say, Elizabeth, can you please ensure that I have the link to the Zoom?
Yeah.
So, and imagine a world where both people who are relating to each other are relating from that place of 100%. I'm 100% responsible for how this is going to go. Not you 50%, not me 50%. Both of us 100% responsible for each other's success and our own success.
Yes. Yes. Well, and how that shows up, you know, back to what we're talking about here, how that shows up for my happiness at work. And then when I can work in that kind of environment where we're all taking 100% responsibility, the kind of person I get to be at work, and then who I get to be when I go home in my family and in my community, you know, I can move mountains.
I get so moved when I think about the power that business owners and business leaders hold in their hands by taking on creating a workplace that allows for all of that and creates the employee experience of happiness. When that person, no matter what happened in the day, is going home fulfilled and happy, and maybe not like, I don't mean, you know, maybe really bad things happen. Yeah. But happy in the sense that, you know, in the first line of her definition is like, choose happiness so I can lead a contented life with meaning and purpose. And when those people are leaving the workplace in that state of mind, and they walk through the door to their families, and they're bringing that energy with them, and they're going out into the community, out into the world with that energy, business leaders and business owners actually have the power to make a difference in the world, to make the world a better place. Because when the employees' experience at work is shitty, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I work in construction. If it's that, and that's what they're taking home to their families, and that's what they're taking to the grocery store, to the park, all that energy that's so,
Yeah. Yeah. What you're doing, Oprah Winfrey talked about this. What you're doing is you're creating a space where people get to show up to be their best at work. So then they can take that home with them.
Yeah.
And that's the great responsibility that you have as a business owner that you're taking on very seriously. And so these values are not just words on a piece of paper, on a plaque, on a wall. You're living them.
Living them.
Yeah.
An interesting story. I'll go on to share the other definitions in a moment, but an interesting story of he was a field site superintendent for us and transitioned into the office to take on a safety role. But he was still out in the field when we were having the training with Unstoppable, and he got to be a part of it. And he shared this with me. His wife said to him one day, because he would talk about what we were learning with Unstoppable, what we were discovering. He would share that with his wife. And if sometime later she said to him, that stuff that you're doing at work, that stuff that you've been talking, she said, I hope you get to do more of that because you're really different now. I'm seeing a difference and I like it.
Wow. You cannot get anything better than that.
You can't. Another one, and I love it's the field guys that always really, because they're just so honest or authentic.
Yeah.
I just tell you like it is. And so another one of our site supers was going through the Being a Leader course with Unstoppable. And of course, I have monthly one-on-ones with all the employees. Well, every 2 months now, because there's so many that, anyways, I'm talking to him. I'm like, how's it going? How's being a leader? And he said, Glenise, they shouldn't call it being a leader. They should call it how to save your marriage.
Wow.
Like 2 stories right there of, we are we're gifting them with this training.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just making a difference for A&H, it's making a difference for their families. And again, making the world a better place. I know it sounds so kitschy, but
Oh, it's what you're doing. It's why you're there. Is you're making a difference.
it's our responsibility.
Yeah.
Value number 4, bigger than myself. And in brackets, so the reason for the official value terms, integrity, authenticity, responsibility, bigger than myself, came later. It was really important to me when I was identifying the values that they be in a language that everybody just got, right? That it was just like, yeah, that's it. So our bigger than myself is I give a shit about others. Like it's that what we were just talking about. So the definition is I choose to be of service to others and act from a true purpose and be someone who makes a difference. I'm here to have a positive impact on my coworkers, my company, and the industry. The difference I make reaches into my family and my community and ripples beyond what I can see. So back to what we were just talking about with, being responsible. It's that.
And I love how we've just had this conversation about this exact value, and you put it into writing for A&H Steel so people get this day in and day out as to the difference they can make out there in the world, bigger than myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And sometimes being bigger than myself is getting over myself and getting over my upset. And when you're having a moment where somebody's pointing the finger at you unfairly and getting over your anger and your sense of unfairness and unjust, like all of that, and stepping back and going, okay, let's have a look at this. That's a tough one.
Yeah, you know, we as you know, we do a lot of work around performance management, and we are revamping our performance management process for our clients. And one of the things that we're putting in there is, and this, this comes from Brene Brown, is, am I ready to give feedback? And am I ready to receive feedback? Because I need to be in a place where I can give feedback that has me not pointing the finger, but has me standing side by side with you. Just like you talked about in the beginning, being really flat about, in your employment agreement, we talk about you being here at 8 o'clock and you've been showing up at 8:15. Just being very flat about it, but being curious about what it is that's having that person show up at 8:15. And so giving feedback, but also receiving feedback, being able to be in a space where I'm ready to hear, where I can take responsibility for where this went off the rails.
Wow, that's powerful.
Right.
And I'm going to keep that in mind, because we're currently looking at our performance review. It's, it's time to, okay, is this working? Isn't it? Or is it working as well as we hope it is? Because really, when I want it to have value for both the employee and for the leader, like that's really important, that they're getting value out of it. So one of the other things that we're going to implement shortly, and I had tapped into your wisdom when I said I would like to do a leadership competency review. And what could that possibly look like? And you said, Glenise, why don't you use your values? So we have actually built out a competency checklist that the employees will provide for their leaders. And it's taking each of our values and, looking at, do I experience this with my leader or not?
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the operationalizing of it, isn't it? Like that's where the rubber hits the road.
That's where the rubber hits the road. Yeah, we can talk about all of this, but hey, how are you living it? And are you ready for this feedback? Yeah. Right. So trial run next week, where Brad is going to do it for me, and Emily, his assistant, is going to do it for him. And we're going to just talk about the experience of it. But it's that important. And if you're going to say these values are how we show up, it's like, well, are we? Yeah. Awesome. Okay, on to happiness. Yes. Okay, this is great. And like I say, when I do my memos, I will actually take just one sentence from each definition and just build that out. And again, the storytelling is so important. How did this show up? So I choose happiness so that I can lead a contented life with meaning and purpose. I strive to prioritize my well-being and the well-being of others. I will choose happiness each day by focusing my language and actions in a positive and helpful way. I will use self-compassion and empathy when I or others make mistakes or need help. I will use optimistic and hopeful language so we can collectively get through times of stress and change. I will practice mindfulness so I can meet chaos with calm. I will develop my resiliency skills so I can rebound from adversity faster. I will choose gratitude so I can focus on all that I have versus what I don't. I will reach out when someone is struggling and help them find the support they need. It is okay if I don't feel happy. I am reassured that my team and the leadership at A&H have my back if I am struggling with my mental health. And that was from Jennifer directly.
She wrote that for you.
She did.
So great. Love that.
Yeah. And, you know, especially over these, and Jennifer did this, we actually revisited and built these out during the pandemic. And one of the reasons, I mean, you got the book because I love you. But she was the keynote speaker at our 50th anniversary celebration, which was virtual due to the pandemic. And then I had purchased a number of her books and I gifted them to people and used them as prizes and things like that, because yeah, she's done some incredible work, and all based on research. It's research based.
Mhm.
This isn't just somebody going, oh, wouldn't it be great if our employees were happy?
And she talks a lot about how the happiness of your employees contributes to the bottom line. Go figure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing that people don't get that.
Right. Right. You know, I have to congratulate you because
This is a prototype for what a workplace could look like. And this is the point where I feel a little bit like I'm bragging, you know, like, oh, my kid is the cutest one on the block. It's the smartest. My kid's the smartest one. But
I want to hear the brag, Glenise.
one of the things that I wanted to talk about was how do you measure this?
Mhm.
Right? Like, how do you measure culture?
I know.
How do you measure people's happiness at work? And, you know, currently we're doing something called the Culture Quotient 5, CQ5 survey with Bea Meyer. We've been doing it for probably close to 10, well, it wouldn't be 10 years, probably good 7 or 8. And we do it 3 times a year. And it's a dipstick measure to see how well or how intentionally you're leading the culture in your organization. And that gives us a little bit of a sense of people's happiness, right? You know, we can tell how we're leading in terms of our leadership, collaboration, accountability, and I will forget the other 2 because that's, yeah, I'm babbling right now. But that helps us to measure happiness to some extent.
Mhm.
But it's the qualitative information that I get, that Brad gets, that I've had people come into the building and spend a day or 2. You know, we've had people from Vancouver come and they just say it's just so different.
Mhm.
It's really like there's something that you feel energetically when you come here. The other day we were doing a final interview for a new HR manager in Vancouver, and she asked Brad, well, what's your experience working at A&H? I thought, wow, what a great question. And Brad said, you know, I just love the people I work with. He said, I can authentically say that I enjoy every interaction I have with, or not every interaction, I enjoy every person that I work with. And it's like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And as you know, that takes something to have a staff that works like that together. And I will say that when I started this and I was alone, I didn't have a Brad, I didn't have anyone. This was just me trying, you know, making this attempt Well,
You,
me and my unicorns, Daeco, and
well, and you having a dream, like, I have a dream. You had a
yeah,
vision.
I had a vision. And one of my, like, when I would walk through this building, which we built 6 years ago, and I was doing site visits, I'm like, I just want to see happy people in here. I just want to see everybody happy. And our vision statement is to be the company everyone wants to work with and everyone wants to work for. Anyway, but it was just literally me that was the source of this. And as we were going through the process and the growing pains, and that this is how we do things here and not this, we lost people. We lost people. We either had to let them go and release them to, you know, other opportunities, or they self-selected out. And what we find coming in are people who consistently look at our website and look at our values and go, wow, like, do you really mean this? Like, is this what I'm going to experience here? Because if it is, I want to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's me bragging.
Excuse me. I love it. And I love your vision, because it really is as simple as that. Be the company who everybody wants to work with and work for. That is what it's all about. Because when you're bringing the right kind of people into the organization, you're keeping the right people in the organization. Excuse me. That's all it's there.
That's it. And when they're showing up as their best selves for each other and showing up as their best selves for your customers,
Yeah.
everything's taken care of.
Yeah.
As
And
you said, the bottom line, it's there. Yeah,
And that's happiness, isn't it?
that's happiness.
Yay. Awesome. Anything more you want to share, Glenise?
My goodness, you know, I could talk about this stuff for hours and hours. I did make a few notes because, you know, I told you how I show up is, or my wound up way of being is that I have to be perfect. Oh yes, I do want to, a couple of things. One, talking about measurement. Brad said to me, and this was shortly after he started, and the leadership team was in a meeting, and we had some really tough stuff that we were talking about, like financially, we were dealing with some stuff, and it was hard content. And he said to me after, he said to me after, and he's told this story a few times. He's like, I couldn't believe how much laughter was in that room, despite the fact that they were talking about such hard stuff and they were dealing with such hard stuff. He said it was incredible. And so one of my comments that, as I was reflecting on this conversation today, was, if somehow you could measure laughter and that be your measure of happiness, we'd be off the charts.
And I actually do remember one of the first iterations of one of your values being something like, people are laughing around here, or people are joking around here. It was something like that. Do you remember that, Glenise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of that. Even when people are dealing with hard stuff, it's incredible the jokes that get cracked and the fun that they have, and it makes my heart happy. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah.
The last thing I do want to share is your role and the importance that or the difference you've made for me personally, as well as for A&H. Because when I reached out to you 10 years ago, we really had never had HR at A&H. It was just it was a mom and pop shop that just grew organically, and I came to you and I remember the first conversation when you said, well, what is it that you need, Glenise? And I'm like, I have no idea. Sure. I don't run a business, but now there's this, right? And we started with the policy and procedure manual. And it was fascinating.
Mhm.
But your role in leveling us up, because that's really what you helped us do, was to level us up from this mom and pop kind of organic little business to something that was, we didn't want to be corporate. Like that was, we had lots of conversations with you about that. We don't want to be corporate, but we wanted to have structure, and we still wanted to keep that warm, fuzzy family feel.
Mhm.
And you helped us achieve that.
And I so appreciate you saying that. And we started with those policies and procedures because that, in my mind, is the backbone of your organization. And that's the structure by which you operate. And that's where your values flow from. And if you've got your values over here and they say something different than what your policies and procedures manual says, or the languaging is different, or there's something that is not aligned. Exactly. Then again, you may as well not put together a policies and procedures manual. You may as well not have values, because it all needs to line up to be in integrity. Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
And I want to just throw something else in there, because I recently experienced this. We as leaders need to recognize too that those policies, if your value is to humanize the workplace and the employee experience, be prepared to break those rules on occasion.
Absolutely. They're guidelines.
They're guidelines. They are not hard and fast rules, because we're people, and everyone's situation, you're going to encounter situations where you're going to have to look at those policies and go, yeah, we have this in place and these are the reasons. And over here is this one person who needs something a little bit different. Honor that.
And it's about having conversations as a leadership team about those things, and knowing that those are not, you don't just write your policies and procedures manual and that's the end of it. No. It's a living document. It's something that you need to have conversations about all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Glenise. Thank you for your time and your energy and the wonderful human being you are. I love talking with you, because I think the way you lead A&H Steel is a way that works, and that we want leaders to be making a difference and to lead with heart like you do.
Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome. Awesome.
Thank you, Elizabeth. What a wonderful opportunity to have. Like, I could have this conversation all day long. Me
too. Well, and what's really cool is it just meandered, and we talked a lot about values, and I'm in that mindset, but I love how we brought in all kinds of things, and hopefully we can push this out there and get some really great stuff out of it.
Thank you. I hope so too. And I really hope that your message and my message, like I'm really present to my stand, and to your point, how can I get that out there? How can I get business leaders to really get that this isn't just about having a business, or even just about employing people, which is important to me. You know that, right? I am responsible for now upwards of 400 employees and their families, like their income. That, I mean, not me, but me personally, like the
Yes.
decisions that I make.
100% responsibility, Glenise.
100% responsibility. And it's more than just that. I am responsible, 100% responsible for their experience here.
Mhm.
And if I remember saying to you, and I've said this to others, I didn't want A&H Steel. I didn't ever wake up in the morning and go, you know, I really, really want to run that company. That's my, you know, rebar is so sexy. No, I avoided it for as long as I could. And I didn't even realize, like, I don't know that I could have articulated that I was avoiding it. But then when I realized that I've been given this gift, like how many people would love to own their own company? And it, I mean, it's not all sunshine and roses. We're going, you know, we've gone through and will continue to go through tough times. But it's a gift that it's like I had a classroom and that was a gift. Every year I had like 25 little people that I could have some sort of influence on. Now I've got 400. Like, that's crazy.
And that's gratitude. What you're showing is gratitude. And I want to point out, Glenise, I think it's really worthwhile to talk about how you've referred to me as a unicorn and other people in your life as a unicorn. And one of the things that I so value about you and I acknowledge you for is you bring in all those resources that you can to make this work, to run this company the way you want to run it. So this is not just a, you know, Glenise doing it on her own. This is you bringing in all kinds of resources to make this happen. And it goes to show what you actually live and breathe at A&H Steel about team, because you've got a team that's pulling this company forward. And that's great leadership.
Oh my gosh, Elizabeth, you know this. You can't do it alone.
No.
I could not. None of this would exist if it was left solely up to me. That'd be ridiculous. Like, it's almost hilarious. I need all of these people, and I love them, and I honor them, and I respect them, and I am so incredibly grateful. So grateful for who they are and what they do and how hard they work to make this little company successful.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
10 years.
I know. So after this, if there's anything else that you feel like you want to reach out and I want to talk about this,
Okay.
I would love it. I just had a little bit of a, what if we did something like this monthly? What if we brought guests on? What if, I don't know.
Our own talk show.
Right. Why not? Yeah.
Oh, I'm up for, I think these conversations are very powerful. It's like, how do we get this messaging out there? How do we get the messaging out there that employee experience should be your number one priority?
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's so simple.
Well, it's a no-brainer. And it doesn't happen. This is not an everyday occurrence.
Elizabeth, I listened to some of the young people in my life, my son's friends and his girlfriend, their girlfriends, or even my sons talking about their experiences at work. And it just breaks my heart. It's like, that's what you have to deal with. It's like, yeah. It's like sending your kids off to school and the teacher being really bad to them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.